talk into the microphone while doing this demo. So today we're going to be making bruschetta on a crostini. So bruschetta became popular in Italy due to just the amount of olive orchards. So when they started trying out how great an olive would be for their olive oil, they would dry up some bread and soak it in the olive oil. And then because they're so known for all of their produce, in the south of Italy, they do a lot of olives, they do a lot of tomatoes. So bruschetta just naturally became a very, very popular dish. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start off by chopping up some bacon.
Do you want the lapel line?
We can try it, it might be easier.
Okay, it's right back here. I can grab it for you and we'll try it.
So I like to dice the bacon fairly small for bruschetta. It's gonna shrink down a little bit more. Yeah, so we have a significant amount of bacon here because the best part of bruschetta to me is how we do the bordelaise style of the sauce, which is mixing the bacon and the onions. When you saute those both together, it makes a delicious sauce to go with the tomatoes. Testing, testing. We can try it.
It doesn't sound like it's working.
That's okay. So I'm gonna throw the bacon here on the grill. So the best way to make bruschetta is actually in a skillet pan, so you can keep all of the juices. But for today's demonstration, so you guys can actually see what I'm doing, we're using a flat pan. Usually the skillet dishes are too high up, so you have no idea what I'm doing while I saute. So while that's going, I'll start dicing up some of my tomatoes. I already have our onions pre-diced. The onions are gonna go in next once the bacon starts to get a little bit more brown. Normally I dice a little bit faster, but all these cute decorations are threatening to fall off the table as I cut. So the tomatoes, we slice them, and then we slice them each way again, and then one more time to make nice, perfect little squares, roughly the same size as the bacon you chopped. The onions should be chopped the same. You don't have to use bacon, but the big thing with using the bacon is it adds just those extra levels of flavor. You could make a vegetarian version of bruschetta with just the onions and tomatoes and maybe some fresh basil leaves, if that's what you would prefer. But the bacon just adds a lot of those savory notes that pair really well with the olive oil on the bread. So while that continues to cook, I'm actually going to grab my bread and start slicing. So France is known for their bread. Their most famous bread would probably be the French baguette. So So in Italy, they really wanted to have something that could compare or that could sell potentially better than the baguette. So they came up with the ciabatta. I personally love ciabatta bread. It's really, really thick. It comes out with a really nice crunch on top while staying a little bit soft underneath. So we'll be using our ciabatta. What we do is we slice it on a bias cut, and I'm going to show you how to do that. That's how we angle the knife, so you get more bread with each slice for your little crostinis. Then you rub them with the olive oil, and you bake them for about 10 minutes at 300 degrees, so they're just nice and crisp on the top. So this is our ciabatta. They can come in a couple different sizes. You can even get them just in little roll sizes, which are great for sandwiches. The bias cut is when we angle the knife at roughly a 45-degree angle. I also will be cutting diagonally on the bread, so this gives you the biggest slice possible. And I'm going to show you the difference between a bias cut and just a regular slice. So on the left is the bias cut, and on, well, my right is going to be the regular slice. You can see the huge size difference. So when we're making something delicious and potentially messy, like the bruschetta, we want to have it in the center so that when you take a bite, the juices aren't sliding off everywhere. Or when you have a little tiny piece of bread, you only get a little bit of bruschetta. So to really truly enjoy it, I like to do the really nice large slices of the bias cut. I'm going to turn up the heat slightly on the bacon, and I'm going to add the onions. What you really, really want with the bruschetta is to have all of that bacon grease. That's going to help make sure your onions don't stick to your pan, and it's going to make sure that there's tons of flavor in your whole dish. So if I were somebody that measured, I probably would do roughly 6 to 8 slices of thick cut bacon with roughly 1 whole onion and 2 whole tomatoes sliced up for this recipe. So the top Italian produce is olives, tomatoes, and 1 special fruit. Does anybody know what Italy's famous fruit is? It's the peach. They're known for growing their peaches. So for today's beverage with our tiramisu and our bruschetta on our crostini is we're gonna do bellinis. So that's fresh pureed peaches in Prosecco, which is a sparkling champagne. If you can't have alcohol or don't like alcohol, you can substitute the champagne for Sprite. So at this point in the dish, when you have the bacon almost done and the onions starting to turn translucent, you can either add fresh whole garlic to just make it fragrant, or you can add granulated garlic, which is a type of spice, and what that does is it'll add the flavor of garlic. If you add the clove of garlic, you're not going to get as much flavor, but you'll get a beautiful aroma. I personally prefer the flavor of garlic, so we're gonna use granulated garlic, and then we're also gonna add a little bit of whole leaf basil to it. That'll go really well with the tomatoes. Again, this dish cooks a lot faster when it's in a pan where you can have all the liquid together, but because we have it in a flat pan, it's gonna cook a little bit slower. So at this point in the recipe, after all of my bread is chopped, I'm gonna add it to my pan, which I laid with some parchment paper, and I'm gonna add a little bit of oil, ideally olive oil. If you're not a huge fan of olive oil, fresh butter works great too. And then I would pop it in the oven for 10 minutes while I continue this so that it's ready to go once this is ready to go. What's nice about the crostini is you can actually make it ahead of time and just wrap it with plastic wrap and have it ready to go when you're ready to go. Because bruschetta sauce has so much sauce in it, even if you let your crostini sit overnight, if you put the bruschetta sauce on it and then wait about 20 minutes, all those juices will sink into the bread to make the bread soft again. Now that my onions are mostly translucent with a little bit of brown edges, I'm gonna add the tomatoes. So Italy is most famous for its roads. So Italy's roads are not traditional roads, but actually waterways. So Italy, back in its heyday, which I believe was, I want to say the 1400s, they had 10,000 gondolas that would go across all of the waterways, and that's how people would get from one location to the next, is via the gondola, which we have as a cardboard cutout up here. And everybody is welcome to take a picture, pretend you're on the gondola. Gondolas are very cool. Now, there's only about 400 gondolas in Italy. It's a really, really popular tourist attraction to get from one way to the next. And they're made in a way so that the person can stand while rowing the boat. So the boat is actually not even, and it won't stay afloat if the person is not standing on the end. That's how they weigh it to keep it on the water. Just some fun facts to kill time on the tomato saute. You know it's done when the tomatoes are nice and tender and have secreted their own tomato sauce. So you'll have a red liquid mixed with the bacon and the onions. I would say this could be about 2 more minutes, and then we can put it directly on the crostini and top it with some fresh chopped parsley. So it's ready to serve. Bruschetta tends to be my go-to hors d'oeuvre when we do anything as a special appetizer. It's very, very fragrant. The fresh ingredients make it just a nice snack. Even in between meals, it's not an overwhelming snack for most people. So it's always a nice, light appetizer. So when you scoop it, you just want to use about a tablespoon and put it directly in the center of your crostini. We're going to top it with some fresh parsley. And there you have it, fresh crostini on a baguette. We're gonna come around and pass some fresh tiramisu and the crostini with bruschetta for everybody to try.